Hello.
Hey everyone.
Welcome to Happiness Hunch. We are Lynn and Mike, and on this channel we talk about the hunches that we act on in this life. And today's hunch, we'd like to talk about our experience with the ketogenic lifestyle. I call it a lifestyle because we've been doing it for 2 years. So here in 2020, we will be entering into our 3rd year of this lifestyle. And we know a lot of people are talking about it. We just thought we would share our experience. It all started back in 2018 when I watched the docuseries called The Real Skinny on Fat. And I watched a lot of these over the years and gleaned a lot of information, but this one was extremely impactful. I think it was episode 5 or 6 where she had a lot of guests on that spoke about their experience, either personal experience or their treatment of clients with the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. And it really kind of blew me away. I didn't really think of keto as something for the average person. I thought of it more as a therapeutic thing for children, and that's where it really began back in the 1930s. But a lot of people, a lot of doctors and medical professionals have been using it in recent years for to treat all kinds of modern diseases. And so anyway, the discussion on it was very inspiring, and we decided to embrace it and experienced a lot of benefits from it. And I thought maybe you might share a little bit about the benefits you've noticed and your thoughts on the ketogenic diet.
Okay. Well, I came at this from having many years experience struggling with my blood sugar issues. So back in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with hypoglycemia and had a pretty serious case of it. Could tolerate practically no sugar. So over the years with the diet that we've had, I've been able to kind of regulate that and manage it pretty well, but not perfectly. So over the year or two leading up to when we started the ketogenic diet, I started noticing that I was getting some new symptoms. And one of the things I've read is that if you struggle with hypoglycemia, at some point in time, if your pancreas kind of wears out and your adrenals get burned out, you may eventually develop type 2 diabetes. So I was starting to have these very strange symptoms with my muscles cramping even more than they used to. And I was having these weird kind of like jolting sort of like, I don't know what I'd call them. They're kind of like reflexes. I'd be falling asleep and my muscles would twitch and jolt. And I was getting kind of concerned about this. So,
and snoring.
Thank you, dear. I was snoring too. I was cutting a cord of wood every night.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping very well either, but that might have been something else. But we're not. Anyway, but in that time leading up to it, I was having these symptoms. So during the winter leading up to the time when Lynn, or while you were watching these videos, I decided to really cut my carbs out.
Right.
So I just cut my carbs out of my diet. And I started noticing, this was Lent, and so I was, what I gave up for Lent was, I gave up all grains. And I noticed that I started feeling a lot better. And believe it or not, that was a lot harder than you could imagine, just because of carb cravings, Anyway, so when Easter came, I kind of went back on my usual helping of carbs, and all the symptoms came back. And so this one night this evening I was feeling particularly bad. So I have a friend who's got type 1 diabetes, and he has a glucose monitor. So I called him up and I said, Scott, I'm coming down to your house. I want you to measure my blood sugar. And so anyway, I went down there. I was having all these symptoms, and he took my blood sugar, and it was like perfect. My blood sugar was at 95, and it was like an hour and a half after I'd eaten. So I was like, okay, that's really strange. So all these symptoms I've been feeling, I was assuming was being caused by low blood sugar, but maybe that wasn't it. So we started looking more into the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting and discovered this whole thing about insulin resistance. And I started thinking, well, maybe my problem is that my insulin levels are high, which would be a diabetic symptom, and that a lot of the symptoms I was experiencing were secondary, conditions related to insulin resistance. So I'm going to hand it back to you because I want you to talk a little bit about insulin resistance and how intermittent fasting kind of like helps that and ketogenic diet in general.
Well, the thing that I was thinking as you were talking is just that the standard American diet is highly insulinating. In other words, the foods that we eat are so high in carbohydrates that we are chronically elevating insulin. And your body can handle that for a time when you're young, but actually there's even kids that are struggling with it now. But it's been the case that, you don't really start noticing it until you get into your midlife time. I just think that that's really what the root thing that was going wrong was really not blood sugar so much as this high chronic elevated insulin. And what happens in your cells, it's really kind of amazing. Your cells become insulin resistant, and what that means is that the insulin, there's so much insulin that your cells become resistant to it because it can only handle so much, so it starts to shut down to the insulin, okay? And what happens at the same time when it shuts down, the cells also are not receiving nutrition. So this is what can lead to some of the chronic diseases that we're seeing, is that the cells are incapable of receiving the nutrition that they really need. So this is a very dangerous place to be. And even if you think you're eating a healthy diet, you can really still be very high in insulin. And this was the game changer for us, is because we had been following the Weston A. Price diet, which is very nutrient-dense foods, but nothing was ever said about carbohydrates and the macronutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrate ratios, so it's just eat good stuff. And I had always felt like, okay, let's keep dessert to once a week because sugar is a problem. But I never thought about the other carbs. So, we just kind of ended up in this situation.
Yeah, lots of oatmeal. We ate a lot of soaked oatmeal and a lot of, it was really healthy bread, but still a lot of bread.
Yeah.
We stayed away from simple carbs pretty well. Like we didn't do a lot
of. So these were not highly processed. Yeah. We did not eat a processed food diet, and we still ended up in this situation where and I tried the ketogenic diet right away. As soon as I watched that series, I was on it. Mike you were doing something else, and you kind of joined a little later. Like your Lenten experience was sort of an experiment that kind of, I think, moved you more towards doing the ketogenic diet.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't long. I think by May or June of that year, I decided to do it fully. And I have to say, for me, a lot of people do the intermittent fasting for the weight loss and the burning of their fat. Well, as you can see, I am not a heavy guy. So losing weight actually was not something that I was that keen on, but what I wanted was to get rid of these other symptoms, and the muscle cramping, the weird twitching, the roller coaster ride of the brain fog in my head and things like that, and not sleeping so well at night. So what happened, as soon as I went on the ketogenic diet and really started doing the intermittent fasting every day, like narrowing my window down to a 4 or 5 hour stretch and not eating so frequently during the day, all of those symptoms went away almost immediately.
So that wasn't mentioned in thinking about Weston A. Price either. So we were eating nutrient-dense food, but the two things we were not doing, we were not concerned about our carbohydrate intake, and we were snacking like everybody else in the world. They were healthy snacks, but the reality is your body can't handle those increases in blood sugar and insulin. Every time you put anything in your mouth, especially carbohydrates, your insulin is just going to go up, and your glucose is going to go up.
Well, and your sugars are going to go up, and they may go back down again.
Right. Yeah, they'll go back down, but the chronic elevation is a real problem, and you're not giving your body a break to ever not be in digestion mode. And your body doesn't do other things that are restorative when you're digesting food. So it became real obvious that we need major breaks from eating, and we need to cut carbs back. And we noticed, I don't want to get into the benefits that I noticed because there were so many. I have 25 right now, and I'm still counting, still going through a list. So there will be more videos on this. And and maybe not everybody wants to hear about keto. I'll always make sure that I put keto in the title if I'm doing a keto video. But I do want to explore this further because I sort of health has always been kind of a ministry for me. Starting with our first child who was so sick. The improvements that we noticed with eating nutrient-dense food were immense, and so I talk about it all the time, and I try to help people. Anybody who asks me questions, I just try to help. So, and so much so that over the summer, I took a course and became a certified keto and intermittent fasting coach through Dr. Berg. Dr. Berg is a wonderful, very caring man. You can find him on YouTube. He has about under 3,000 videos on keto and intermittent fasting. And he has about almost nearly 3.5 million followers here on YouTube. And his videos are short and sweet and very informative. And he has a live show on Fridays, which I watch every week. So anyway, I just have always had this great desire to help people feel better because I feel like we have a God-given purpose in our life, and it's really hard to fulfill that when your health is poor. So
and your energy is low.
Yeah, it's hard to do anything. It's hard to even be a good wife or a husband or a mother, all these things. So health is kind of a foundational element to living a full life. So I got the certification, and I greatly desire to help people. So you will see some videos coming on keto, and I'm excited about that, mainly because I'm excited to help people feel better and live better.
So do you have an angle? Do you have, what's going to make you different than all of the other keto voices out there?
Well, I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure I know that.
Well, we were talking about this the other day, that we want to talk about what it's been like as a family.
Yeah.
And so we might register some of the reactions of the kids,
on different meals.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure of all the things that will happen here because this is being driven, and I feel spirit-led in all of this. So I'm just kind of taking one video at a time, to be honest. But yeah, I think the one thing that would be unique is that this is a family project. It's good for everybody, and it's good for kids. And there are a lot of sick kids in our world, and it's
challenging. I mean, honestly, making a major diet change in a family life can be a little rough on the kids and rough on the parents, and navigating that and trying to get them to experiment and try new things and develop their palate and realize that it actually this stuff actually tastes really good, and
it's very satisfying. Yeah. The diet itself is it's very satisfying. I'm not. I don't want to go into benefits because I just won't be able to stop. So, anyway, let's close this video. There will be more. Thank you for joining us. Leave any comments you might have. If you've done the ketogenic diet, tell me about it in the comments. If you're afraid to do it, tell me why. If you're interested in it and there's a specific reason why you're interested in it, I'd love to hear that too. So, thanks for visiting with us today, and we'll see you in the next video.
All right, take care, and until then,
follow your hunches.